Hello everyone and welcome back to yet another video. Today we are tackling the controversial and divisive topic that is loot boxes in video games. If you for some reason are out of the loop and you don't know what a loot box is, then let me define what I mean. Loot boxes are a common feature in many games of the modern age. A loot box is a virtual crate which contains randomized items. In general, they can be bought with in-game currency or real-world money. They work rather like slot machines. You put in your cash, you pull the lever, so to speak, and the crate spits out a reward. It might be purely cosmetic, like skins or emotes, but it might also be gameplay buffs and convenience items. It varies drastically from game to game. These loot boxes have been taking the industry by storm in recent years. In the beginning, they were mostly found in multiplayer games, like Counter-Strike Global Offensive and Team Fortress 2. In Counter-Strike in particular, the system was embraced with open arms by the community. There were some detractors to the concept of paying real-world money for skins, but they were few and far between. After all, League of Legends had been doing this for ages, just not with loot boxes. While the timeline after this is a bit muddled, it's fair to say that other companies saw the enormous success that Valve had with loot crates in Counter-Strike, and they quickly decided to emulate it. Today loot crates are in a majority of AAA games. They can be found in everything from FIFA to Battlefield to MMOs like The Elder Scrolls Online and Guild Wars 2. Now recently they've begun to spill over into single player experiences like Shadow of War. You would now be able to get rare orcs for your army faster if you paid for it, something that raised quite an uproar from the fanbase since this system was not in the first game. Among the uproar there seems to be a lot of people screaming on both sides with no actual arguments or contributions to the discussion. I'm gonna try my hardest to stay out of that in this video. Now it is hard to argue that loot boxes are not a great way for companies to earn tons of money. Some people would say that companies need this money to keep servers running and to continually produce new titles. Now this is a pretty solid argument, and I would agree with it if not for the fact that if you look in EA's quarterly report, you will see that they've continually upped the bonuses for the top executives. Now that is not to say that these people don't deserve to be paid well. And it's also not to say that all the money from the extra revenue is going directly to the big bad executives. All I'm saying is there seems to be room, at least in EA's budget, for investment in servers and future projects. So this argument doesn't really work to justify loot boxes and things like them. I want to go over a few other arguments for loot boxes in games. These are specifically taken from the reviews on Steam for Shadow of War. Understandably, there's a lot of people here going against the bandwagon, citing the fact that the game is actually not all bad despite having loot boxes. Now I don't disagree with this. That is after all a purely subjective opinion, but they do provide some arguments against the detractors of the loot box system. So let's see what these people have to say, shall we? The first one here is from a player 8 hours into the game. He had the following to say. The microtransactions have zero effect on the game and are totally avoidable. Any complaints about them are either ignorant or just plain entitled whining. Now there are a few problems with this statement. The fact that the loot boxes have zero effect on the game for you might be very true, but the very fact that they are in the game means that for a lot of people they do have an effect on gameplay, or at least an effect on the experience they have with the game. In Shadow of War you occasionally get loot boxes, and it is possible to do certain challenges to obtain them. The loot boxes are the carrot on the stick on these missions, so to speak. For a lot of people, including myself, it's gonna be very tempting to just outright buy these boxes for real money, since you just get the carrot on the stick instantly, skipping the grind and getting straight to the reward. Now I'm obviously not gonna do this because I'm broke, but this very temptation serves to be an annoyance. It's gonna feel like the game is constantly trying to tempt you into spending more money. You might not care about this, that's fair, again completely subjective, but a lot of people don't want this in a game which they paid $60 or more for. So saying that they are just ignorant or whining shows how little credit you give other people's opinions, Mr. Anonymous Steam Reviewer. This next fellow addresses some of what I've just talked about. Let's hear him out. Regardless of what anyone says, the loot boxes are not required for gameplay. Even if they were, I've already acquired 4 just for playing. Have not dropped a dime on a premium currency, but you can get it by completing challenges. I, for example, got 500 gold for killing an overlord at a fortress, 50 for killing 5 Euros with a arrow mid-air, and some other tasks just straight up gave me a couple of loot boxes, not counting the one I got for ordering the gold edition. Now this guy does have a fair point here. The guy seems to enjoy the amount of loot boxes he got just for playing the game. Not all players are going to be tempted to buy loot boxes just because they're shiny and they really want the rare item. But again, for a lot of people, especially those with addictive personalities, this is going to be a temptation. And that is going to be annoying. It's the very concept of loot boxes that people are speaking out about. That is why the argument of, well, they're optional and I don't see the problem, does not really work as a counter argument. We're not saying that someone is forcing us to buy them. We're saying that we feel tempted and that is an annoyance in a game where we just play it to relax. I want to touch a bit on the whole gambling problem that some people see with this system. Now, I live in a country where gambling is completely legal as long as you're over 18. I've gambled a few times in my life and I stopped rather fast because I saw my addictive personality coming out, which I don't like. Now, I understand the worry that kids are gonna spend a lot of money on these types of games because they're very subjective to shiny things and their minds might not have developed fully yet. But at the point where a child wants to start gambling in a video game, it is the parent's responsibility to say no and to keep any credit card details away from their kids' hands. Any other response is quite frankly irresponsible. It is clear that some sort of legal solution is needed for the child gambling problem. But until the political world catches up, it is your job as a parent to educate your child on the dangers of gambling and make sure they don't fall in. I'll end the video by saying this. I don't personally have anything against loot box systems, as long as they are purely for cosmetics. The second they enable a player to get stronger, or are just plain replacements for cheats, that's where I have a problem. The use of loot boxes in Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Shadow of War are despicable in my head, but for different reasons. One turns the game into a pay-to-win madhouse, and one turns what would otherwise be cheats into microtransactions. I don't like to see the video game industry go in this direction, but in the end, all I can do is vote with my wallet. Therefore, I won't be buying any of these titles. If you are of a similar mindset, might I suggest you don't either. I have no doubt that both of these games are gonna be good, but if we keep buying titles with increasingly ludicrous microtransactions and loot box systems, that is all we're gonna get in the future, and it will only get worse. Well, that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry to not leave it on too much of a happy note, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye!